start with this. Before we get to Ollie Gordon's statement or whatever, what do you think is the biggest storyline that the Big 12, as we head into 16 teams over the next couple of days in Las Vegas to discuss the conference coming up this fall?
I would say it's the 4 new teams coming in this year. I think that's the biggest story, and how they're going to fit in. I think that's going to be the buzz, and everybody's going to be trying to get to know those Utah and Colorado and the Arizona schools. So I think that's going to be the biggest buzz is learning those teams.
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's also the fact that it's the first year without Oklahoma and Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Not to make it continuously be about them, but when you were day one members and you were the 2 biggest members still standing and you've now left, and there's no more goodbye tour, there's no more, hey, they're leaving in a couple of years, or hey, this is their last year. It's like, no, they're gone. This is a brand new league. And so to Paul's point, yeah, there's 4 new members as well, and the 4 that will be just entering their second year in this league. So I think it's just the changing that continues on, and now being at a place where it is a league where, save for maybe a complete surprise, like we've mentioned before, if the Big Ten or, decided to take a flyer and you hear rumors about what teams would be involved. I saw one about Kansas just the other day, and I brought that up multiple times before about just Kansas would be a team, or West Virginia if things were to fall a certain way, those types of things. Barring something like that, like, this is going to be the league for a while, this grouping of teams. And so we know that leagues aren't getting smaller, they're getting bigger. It's gotten quite big. It's a new leaf turned over, and there's no remaining blue blood schools. It's all schools that are pretty similar in many regards. And so I think it's a lot of that. So a little bit of what Paul said, a little bit more ketchup added onto that, or whatever, flavoring you like. And I think that's going to be the main key, is just this is the new Big 12 in 2024.
Yeah, it is different. And we'll see 4 of the schools that have joined: Utah, Colorado, Arizona State. We've tried to cover them as much as we can tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, we actually get to meet some of them, and including guys that have been reporters that we've had on, that when a lot of the speculation began of when those 4 might be a part of it, despite so much of there's no way it's going to happen, the Pac-12 has disappeared, and we'll have Utah, Colorado, and the 2 schools from Arizona to be a part of it. Let's start with Ollie Gordon. We know the story from, a couple of weeks ago. He was arrested for an alleged DUI. And we even had this discussion last week about whether or not he would be at Big 12 Media Days. I made the comment, correct me if I'm wrong, is I thought it would be great for him to be there so he could get out front as a Heisman candidate and also maybe be able to say what he wants to say. He released a statement earlier today. We'll get to that. Are you surprised he's coming?
Yeah, maybe not as much. I mean, like, after Craig, we talked about it. Craig, when I went back in the history and found some other people who had committed similar transgressions for the Pokes, and Mike Gundy handles it a different way. And I'm not here to tell you that's right or wrong. I have no idea. Like, does it work? Did they not get another one? Like, okay, great. So I'm just surprised because even though he released a statement, he's still going to answer questions about it when he's up there on podiums, because, most reporters don't really care about your statement. They're going to ask something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, not really, knowing kind of Gundy's history, that he hasn't treated everything the same way, and he hasn't always been the harshest towards suspending guys because they've been in trouble. So I think, in the case of Ollie Gordon, they'll let the law play out, and I'm not surprised he's their biggest star. He's one of the biggest stars in the Big 12, and I think that to, take him off the board would have been understandable, but I also can see where Gundy's coming from. Not that I necessarily agree with it. I'm sure we'll hear him say something, because somebody will,
sure,
of course, ask about Ollie Gordon and ask, why did you decide to bring him along? And I'd imagine he'll have an answer that we'll hear in the coming days. So I'll be tuned into that. And I think, it's just maybe a situation where a guy who's, yes, a very good player, and that certainly helps matters, but is a good guy, all things considered, and made an honest mistake. And maybe that's the way they're approaching it as well. But I'm a little bit surprised, but not totally shocked, based on just kind of how history has gone. And there's a big article on Polk's report, I think, is where it originated. That kind of went over some of the suspensions that Gundy's handed out over the years, and they differ. They kind of differ depending on the situation. So I think that's one of those that you see here, one of those types of decisions that is its own unique situation.
Ollie Gordon did release a statement. The first part of it was about apologizing to everybody, basically that he probably needed to, if in fact he did. I say probably needed to. That's up to him. Regardless of the outcome of this pending investigation, I did not uphold the values I have for myself and for the OSU football program. I'm committed to learning and growing from this mistake, and I will work to earn back the trust of those who I have disappointed. Thank you, Ollie Gordon, with his signature at the bottom. He's a hell of a player. We know he had a spectacular year last year. And I just felt like, and it might be what you guys are saying too, that Gundy it sometimes reacts differently than what maybe the status quo, which kind of makes him unique. And I felt like it would be good for him to be here. We'll see him tomorrow or whenever Oklahoma State is here, and look forward to having hear what he has to say.
I'll tell you, of the 16 schools had their star player gotten a DUI the week before media days, at least 12 of them would have been like, well, he's not going. At least 12. So credit to Oklahoma State for going into the breach on this and continuing it. Like, here's the other thing for Ollie Gordon. He's a Heisman candidate again.
Yeah.
It's not good for him not to get out there. So if you want to have him have a legitimate chance of doing this, you have to take every opportunity that the other schools are going to roll out there. You don't think that every chance that Carson Beck gets to, roll out in front of something that Georgia's not going to be like, hey, look at Carson Beck.
Yep.
He would really look good in that house, wouldn't he?
Yep.
He'll have fun with Charlie Ward and
Reggie Bush.
You're like, yeah, that'll be a hilarious commercial.
I mean, he might still be suspended for all we know. That'll, I'm sure, be part of the question that Gundy ends up answering, whoever ends up asking about the Ollie Gordon situation. So just because he's here doesn't mean that there won't still be some punishment. I mean, of course, there'll be some level of punishment, but, I mean, who's to say he doesn't get suspended for a game? But, yeah, I think a lot of things taken into account. And it'll be good to hear Ollie Gordon talk because, I think they were smart to throw out that statement, address it head on, and let it be known that he was going to be here and have him go ahead and say something before just getting peppered with questions and then having to respond for the very first time. So from their standpoint, I think that they handled it about as smoothly as you could have if you wanted to have Ollie Gordon here at Media Days. And, yeah, he made a mistake. He committed a crime allegedly, and that will play itself out. But I don't, think the kid's like the Unabomber or something now, like he made a dumb choice, and that will be taken care of behind closed doors and maybe even in front of closed doors, depending on how the next couple of days go, or, at least on their media day. And then, depending on whatever the punishment ends up being. But I'm glad that we'll get to hear from him. Not going to see him at another Oklahoma State media day. He's going to be a guy who's, going off to the pros after this year. So I think it's a opportunity that Oklahoma State probably feels like they get they need to spotlight this guy. If he allows them the ability to feel like they're making the right decisions, having him still be a part of things, then yeah, you're gonna go forward with that. And you're gonna spotlight the guy who is a star on your team.
All right. Again, we're live at Lotus Broadcasting in Las Vegas, just from downtown. Tomorrow and Wednesday, we'll be inside of Allegiant Stadium, home of the Raiders, and where the Super Bowl was played earlier this year. So that's where we'll be tomorrow with Big 12 Media Days, 8 schools each day. ADs in some cases will be there. Head coaches from every school will be there. And usually each team will have 3, 4, or 5 players who will be there as well. We'll try to bring as much of that wall-to-wall to you. We'll be here first thing tomorrow morning at the stadium and Wednesday to even be able to record some of the interviews and segments and then bring them back to you, if not Tuesday, Wednesday, but also later in the week. By the way, I hope you had a great 4th of July weekend. We did. I think we all had a chance to kind of decompress again. So hopefully you enjoyed whatever it was and wherever you might have been to do that. There's also, and I see a lot of the speculation about, because realignment is almost like contagious. It's a word that gets people like the fervor, and people just get like frothing at the mouth about the possibility, because what we've seen for the last 3 summers. Paul Catalina, you mentioned this. Florida State is going to get unredacted copies of the ESPN ACC multimedia agreement per a judge. Hasn't somebody already seen Clemson? Aren't they the ones that saw that?
Clemson saw a slightly redacted copy. And now Florida State will get to see the fully unredacted copy. Now, there's a lot of complex stuff on this. I had to read really quickly because I saw it just before the show. But what ESPN and the ACC are really worried about is Florida State, if they have this in their legal department, because they're a state institution, they are subject to a public records request that they would have to fulfill, especially in the state of Florida, which is pretty big on those things. That's why they're getting it in the first place, because of this sunshine law that they have. But the judge made a ruling that, the ACC and ESPN will be able to have hearings on why that request for a Freedom of Information Act shouldn't be filled, because this is proprietary information. But Florida State will get to see it. What that means, I mean, I don't know. Like, you're going to see a lot of people out there going, well, this means that they'll find their way out, or there's some kind of smoking gun in this document. I don't know. I mean, we've had Bob Thompson and Pat Crakes on a bunch, and I asked them about, like, what's so secret about this? And they're like, well, it's not really anything that would be damning to probably, Florida State or ESPN or anything like that. It's just there are things in there that other conferences don't know. Like, the Big 12 doesn't know what the ACC's deal is. They kind of do, but
I thought they copied and pasted the Big 12's deal.
Well, ESPN does that and then changes things, but there might be things in there that, if the Big 12 found out, they'd be like, hey, man, the hell, bro? What are you doing? So, yeah, those are things, and they don't want trade secrets out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's news. That's some other piece of news to chew on. I think that there was a story, I don't know, last week or the week before, and as has become customary now, because there is such a fervor that you talk about, like, anything is treated like it's like an asteroid's coming to Earth. And I saw whatever the last legal update was with Florida State before this one, and I saw a Florida State commentator who is deep into realignment, like bulge eyes emoji, and oh my God, here it comes. And there's like an actual lawyer underneath that goes, this is standard protocol. This is exactly how every case in America works. Yeah. And so that's what you got to be careful of. Like, not every little court thing is a massive deal. But I guess if you're, so inclined to make it that way, or you don't know any better, then it can feel that way. But it was just kind of funny how that just took the air right out of the balloon of, like, actually, that's just how it always works in America. This, on the other hand, Clemson's had their time to look at the redacted copies. I think there is this sentiment for those who just so badly want to happen, like, here now they've got the magic bullet, and I don't really feel like that's the case necessarily here. I just feel like it's more of the ongoing legal process. Could it be good? Yeah, sure. Maybe there's something in there that unlocks the keys to the rest of the kingdom, so to speak, and they're able to free themselves. But it just seems to me to be more of just an ongoing process of trying to, mediate this thing. But until you can come to some type of a settlement, which I don't know if there's anything close to that happening at this point, you're going to continue to work the legal system. And so back and forth we go, like a game of ping pong. And that's what we've been doing now for the last few months. And that's the way it's going to continue to be until there is an actual smoking gun that, ends this thing. Although I feel like that probably will be found by now. Or there's some type of an agreement made. But I know that there is, especially here in this month of July, a lot of fervor, I think, because you've had people with some cachet come out and introduce themselves and what they've heard. And then you've also got the fact that this is the last, like, real dead period before the actual season starts. So everybody is clamoring for something to keep them entertained. We'll have media days. Look, it'll be a topic, I'm sure. Brett Yormark will get asked because everybody considers him like the realignment man now at this point. I don't know if he'll have any answer other than the Big 12 is always open for business, which is not necessarily realignment related, but can be. And, I'm sure Jim Phillips will have his questions. And I don't know about the ACC or the SEC and the Big 10 of how much it'll get brought up there. But, it's an ongoing topic, but it's definitely not like we've been saying, at least for a while. It doesn't feel like anything that's just impending, but it's one of those things that if they came to an agreement or a settlement, or there's a smoking gun, wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden that's going down, then so be it. But if there's, who knows, maybe Texas, Oklahoma type situation. A lot of people have been bringing that up.
Well,
lately.
Okay, I was going to bring this up. By the way, Barry Odom, UNLV football coach, will join us at the bottom of the hour. We'll have Eli Letterman from ESPN at 4. Cam Martin from South Oak Cliff, who committed to Baylor over the weekend. In fact, yesterday, Red Oak, excuse
Cam
me, Red
Martin's
Oak.
running back.
Cam Morgan, defensive lineman who committed to Baylor on Sunday. Grayson Grundhafer sat down, had an interview with him, a highly rated player. What does that mean for Baylor? And we'll also look at the rest of recruiting with Eli at 4. And then we'll also have Andy Staples from on3.com in the 5 o'clock hour. Paul's Top 5 will join us too. On a scale of 1 to 10, when we look at the last 3 summers, 21, you had Texas and Oklahoma, and eventually led into 4 new teams in the Big 12. Then, of course, 22, you had the changes then with teams joining the conferences, moving. And then 23 last year, of course, the summer, which led to Colorado, Utah, the Pac-12 dissolving schools in the Big 10, also ACC and more. On a scale of 1 to 10, compared to the last 3 summers, this is a 0.
No, I mean, there's nothing going on.
There's no meat on the bone, even though there were denials and there were thoughts about, they're really compared to what you could see that was building. Now that can change quickly, but basically it's like,
Clemson and Florida State is a thing, but it's not really a thing yet because they're just in court. And everybody wants like the Florida State and Clemson to wrap up like an episode of Law and Order or Matlock, where at the end, like, an hour later, they're like, all right, guilty, not guilty, you're out. It's not that. It's going to be a long process, and partially because the ACC is going to intentionally try to make it as long as it can to run up the clock on whatever they can. So yeah, I mean, this is nothing. And also Florida State and Clemson is a new thing because everybody else kind of left in the dead of night, and Florida State and Clemson are out there saying, well, we want to do that too. But we don't have, expiring contracts like everybody else did, so they could try to sneak out the door. So we're trying to do it differently. But other than it's a court case. So unless you're a lawyer or, a paralegal or, what do they call the stenographer, it's not really all that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is for the fans who are just into the legal side of things, or those who feel like every update's going to suddenly be that key to, again, unlocking whatever needs to be unlocked to allow them out of the ACC household and into wherever they are supposed to be going. There's a couple of options. That's it. And no, the Big 12 is not one of those, in my opinion. But it's nothing like those from the standpoint of there were completely out of the blue shockers like Oklahoma and Texas, and then there was a long.
USC UCLA was next, right?
That was completely. I mean, for the most part, that was completely out of the blue as well, and those are different in that way. And then yes, of course, there was message board talk and rumors, and forever and ever Texas was trying to get out of the conference and all that, but nobody pegged like that time period to the SEC the way that it happened. So that was shocking because of how, when, and the way that it unfolded. UCLA, USC. People will tell you now after the fact, oh, no, I said that. I remember it was still the timing of it. Nobody pegged that I saw to that degree. Like, you can't say something and then like 5 years later it happens and be like, see? Yeah. It's like, come on. Yeah. Like, you got to be like in the time frame, because I can just say something now that could very well happen in 20 years, but I'm not going to go like, told you so. So yeah, those were pretty much out of the blue. And then, yeah, with the Pac, it was this long drawn out, process where they were trying to get this TV agreement and were remaining steadfast in belief that they were going to get it. And then time kept ticking and days kept passing and months were rolling up the calendar. Next thing you know, like, oh, there's actually a real deadline approaching, boys. Like, you got to get something done. And you could feel that heat turn up. And it was really getting hot about this time last year. And then we know what happened a few weeks later. Boom, Colorado's the first shoe to drop, and then others follow. And now here we are where the Pac is just Oregon State and Washington State at this point. So yeah, this is different in that regard. I know there's been a lot of speculation about what could be like those others. Well, there's the prolonged battle right now is FSU and Clemson and trying to battle for the grant of rights and to get out of those. But shockers. I mean, I certainly don't know what to predict there, but it's totally possible, I suppose.
I think the other story is not if that happens, because eventually that appears as whether it's in 2 or 3 years or whatever. It's what does that mean if it does happen?
Right.
That's where you set off the cycle of what we've seen the last 3
Right.
summers and fall.
And here's the thing, removing them from the equation, if you look at all the other conferences, I don't know, like I see it in the chat room every day. There are people that's convinced that A&M is going to go to the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's
they're not going to the Big Ten.
No.
They're in the SEC. You're not leaving the SEC.
I had a tweet about it, yeah.
Leaving the SEC. If you get that invite into that fraternity, you go there, you take your lashings, and you enjoy it. You wear the letters. That's what they do. So, but everybody
that would be
else,
one of the most gutless moves
I know,
in the history of
stupid,
sports,
yeah,
man.
no.
It would be the
It would
dumbest thing.
literally, it's Texas joining the conference, but if they then all of a sudden say, okay, we're moving to the Big Ten, I'm going to say it. It would be chicken. You know what? It was like stay there and beat them.
Well, the thing is,
head to head,
it's not even remotely close to true.
No, first of all, it's just a bad rumor.
It's not even remotely close to
Dumb.
true. Yeah, and the people who started it are just dumb too. But everybody else, look, the Big 12 is pretty happy with each other right now. They're pretty happy to have the league they are. Content is maybe the better. There's contentness across.
I think everybody's happy to be in a conference that is still considered autonomy 4.
Yeah, so they're content right now. The Big Ten very content. The SEC, they're happier than anybody could ever be because everything goes their way. The ACC. Again, outside of probably those 7 teams that were upset about it, the other teams were like, hell, we're content. We love it. So that's maybe a little bit different is that you have teams that are, conferences that are kind of set right now. Now that's going to morph again and college football is going to change again because it always does. But at least for the short term, I think everybody's content with what's going on and having to, better their situation from within and not, let's just add a team to add a team.
Okay, we need to break here. Wrap this up, Craig, if you want to, and then Barry Odom, UNLV, will join us at 3:30.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Big 12 schools are content. I also know all of them would be, packing their bags in 5 seconds if they got an invite from one of the 2 big conferences. And so those are the 2 that really dictate. And if you want to go like the big, bad, evil TV networks, but, even above that, you can do that. But, yeah, I mean, it's not a matter of here's what Virginia Tech wants to do. Nobody cares right now. I'm sorry. But, the ACC thing is its own thing, and that will determine a lot. But also, what would those 2 conferences possibly want? And that's valid. I mean, if the SEC decided that they wanted to go pluck away West Virginia for some reason, I don't say it that way to be disrespectful, but I don't think it would make a ton of sense, honestly. Then that could further shake up things. But beyond that, the fact that everybody would be open ears and say, yes, we would love to go get paid Big Ten money or SEC money beyond just some random invite. I think that everybody in the Big 12, to what you said originally, is content with where they are. And if this is what it's going to be for a little while, I think they're all going to be okay with that.
Yeah, I think there's some that aren't. That doesn't mean they're not still keeping their eyes open, but I think everybody right now, they also know they need to be. They need to all as one together. And I think it's going to be fun, despite we know some of the angry rivalries of Utah, BYU, among some others.